Hi everyone, welcome back to JavaScript 101, and in this video I'm going to be talking about comparisons. So comparisons are just comparing two values and then giving you a boolean value as a result. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to log out one of these comparisons here and I'm going to say 1. I'm going to use the greater than sign and the number 2 here. So if you know basic logical math here, you know that 1 is not greater than 2. So this statement is not true or is false. So if I run this line here, it gives me the answer false here. So we've done a comparison, and a comparison is just two different values with a comparison operator here. In this instance, we use the greater than sign, but there is also the less than sign, less than or equal sign, greater than or equal sign, and also the equal sign and the not equal sign. So we've done basically a numeric comparison here. We compared a number with another number. But what happens if we compare two strings together? So the way strings are compared is by alphabetical order. So if you say something like A is greater than B, since B is higher up in the alphabet, it has a greater value. So this value here will evaluate to false. So if we have, for example, two strings that have the same beginning letter, let's say we're going to give you a string of and we compare with and, what it does is it compares character by character until it sees a difference and do the comparisons there. So A and A is the same, so we looks at the second character with T and N. Since T is actually further up in the alphabet than N, we know that at is actually greater than N, so that will evaluate to true. So what if you have strings that are of unequal length? So if I have something like cat and then a word called catch, you can see here is what it will do is it will compare each letter until it sees a difference. Okay, so catch has another character, but cat has only 3 strings. It will actually give a higher value to the string with a greater length. So in this instance, it will give you false here. So if you put there less than, it will actually give you true. So that's how we compare strings with strings in JavaScript. So the next thing we want to look at is how do we compare two different data types. The first value we want to look at is we're going to say hello, and we're going to just do something simple, and we're going to say hello is less than 1. So if we run this line of code here, it will give you false. So if you are doing math, you know that if it is less than 1, if any number is less than 1 is false, then maybe it is greater than 1, or it could be equals to 1. So if we run all these 3 lines, it will always evaluate to false, because in JavaScript what happens is when we're comparing with numbers, it will convert the string here or any other data type to a number and then do the comparison here. And if you remember in the type conversion video that we did previously, when we convert a string there, an actual word to a number, it will actually give you not a number here. So if we do comparisons of not a number with an actual value of 1 or any number, it will actually always evaluate to false, because not a number is not greater than any number, is not less than any number, or is not equal to any number. But if you put a not equal sign, this will evaluate to true. So that's how we do comparisons with two different values. So what happens if we have a string of a number here? So I'm just going to put 1, going to string of 1, equality here. What it does is the same thing. It will convert this string into a number and then you do the comparisons there. And this also works with a leading 0 here. So 0 1 converts to the number 1 and you will get a true value there. So that's how comparisons work when you're comparing two different numbers. So next, the two different data types. So the next thing I want to show you is something called the strict equality. So we know that this comparison here evaluates to true, but there is also another operator called the strict equal sign, which is just an extra equal sign here. So this value here will evaluate to false because it looks at the data type and this is a string, so it only accepts another number. So if this will evaluate to true, the number 1 is true with the number 1. So that's the only situation where that will evaluate to true. We also have what is the strict unequal sign. So when you have just the normal equal sign here, this will evaluate to false, right? Because it will convert the string to a number, and then if we use the strict unequal sign, this will evaluate to true because it just takes the number as a this string as a string. So the string does not equal to a number, so that will evaluate to true. So that's your strict equality and your strict unequality sign there. And the next thing I want to show you is the value of the null and undefined. So if you compare null with your undefined, so I'm going to say null equals to undefined, what it does here is it will evaluate to true. So that's your null to undefined. And if you have like the strict equality, then it will equal to false. So the other operators, your less than, your greater than or equal, and your less than or equal, what it does is it will also convert your null and undefined to numbers. But in null and undefined, if you convert your null and undefined to numbers, you will have two different values. So null will actually evaluate to 0 and undefined will actually evaluate to not a number. So that is basically what happens if you compare other operators excluding your equality operators. It will convert it to a number. So when you're doing a null and those operators I mentioned with another number here, it will actually convert null to a number. So this null is greater than 0 will actually evaluate to false. If you have, for example, let's say I'm gonna say null is greater than -1, this will evaluate to true because null is 0. But if you do an undefined here, this will actually evaluate to false because undefined becomes not a number. And the same thing happens if you compare 0 as greater than or equal, and if you put null there, it will actually give you true here. But if you put undefined, it will give you false. So that is basically the trap that you have to look at when you're doing your comparisons with null and undefined. So okay, I'm going to end this video here. We've actually gone through a lot of comparisons here. We looked at number comparisons, string comparisons, your strict equality, inequalities, and your comparisons with undefined and null. And the next video I'm going to do is we're going to use these comparisons in what we call conditionals, your if statements, your else statements, and we're going to see how we do it in JavaScript. So if you like this content, just hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for your notifications, and I will see you in the next video.